The 2022 NFL Draft is quickly approaching, and unlike in 2019 with Kyler Murray, and unlike 2020 with Joe Burrow, and of course last year with Trevor Lawrence, we knew well in advance who the number one overall pick was going to be, and signs are currently pointing towards Aiden Hutchinson to be the number one pick for Jacksonville, and after that it can go in any direction, and hell, even Aiden's not a set lock at this point in time. And in 1920 and 2021, we knew Nick Bosa, Chase Young, and Zach Wilson were going to be the number two overall picks. But the 2022 NFL Draft has the potential to be the most unique or most unpredictable draft of all time. May not be the right word, but easily over the past 5 to 10 years. And despite the narrative of it being a weak draft class, there are still some very good prospects in the 2022 class. And in today's video, we are going to discuss why it is the most unpredictable class in recent memory, and it will go into team building and why teams would make these selections versus why they would not choose another prospect, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's begin. And as mentioned, this video is under the assumption Michigan edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson goes number one overall, though I want it to be clear there is still an outside chance he does not, which already plays into the most unpredictable part of this year's class. But then you take a team selecting number two overall in the Detroit Lions, and there's a ton of different directions they could go. And as we know, April is smokescreen season, or the time of year where teams throw out a ton of information, some true, some untrue, to try and throw other teams off of the prospect they are keening in on. With Detroit specifically, a lot of the players I see mocked to them are, of course, Aiden if he falls, Liberty quarterback Malik Willis because he certainly will not be there when Detroit is back on the clock at pick 32, Georgia edge Travon Walker has been building steam, and Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton. With Travon Walker, first off, I would not make this pick because if I'm selecting number two overall, I want the best prospect available, not someone who may become a good NFL player, so I would draft in this scenario Kayvon over Travon, but there's been a lot of groupthink in NFL circles where people are saying you can't coach what Travon has physically, which is a 6'5", 272-pound frame with a 4.5 140, which ranked in the 98th percentile, along with a 6.89 3-cone that ranked in the 93rd percentile for his position. And about a month ago, it was not uncommon in mocks to see the Jets select a tackle at number 4 overall, then snag Travon Walker at number 10, and now there's a very good chance Travon isn't even there for their first of two first-round selections. But then there's the other side of it where Travon is not a polished pass rusher, and the Lions should take a player who they know is going to be a good defensive player in Kyle Hamilton, because in a lot of ways you can't replicate what he has either. And now for the crowd of, well, NFL teams aren't high on Kyle and the media has him slotted in the top 5 or 10, when the reality is he'll go towards the middle of the first round. And in a nutshell, everything we've said so far summarizes the NFL draft process. So Detroit, to me at least, is in the driver's seat, because if there is a team that wants a quarterback, whether it is Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett or even another prospect like a Travon Walker, they're going to have to come up and get him. And Detroit can leak out whatever information they want, and other teams would simply have to buy it because there's no other option for them at this point in time. Detroit can even trade down and use that to their advantage and get a couple of extra picks for next year, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest with how active this NFL offseason has been so far. Think Russ, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and everyone else in between. There are countless directions the Lions can go. Now, credit the Houston Texans, for as far as I'm concerned, have kept it quiet for who they are most interested in. However, I do think with the third overall pick, the Texans' prospect list is far, far narrower than what the Lions is at number 2. I do believe GM Nick Caserio will be looking to build the trenches up and therefore eliminates a lot of potential prospects. There's a very good chance he'll have the choice of his tackle of the future, and while the Texans' record was not good in 2021, and more than likely will not be again in 2022, I don't think the talent on the roster after this draft, that is of course assuming they do well in the draft, is going to be reflective of what their 2022 record will probably be, which is probably going to be bad. If I had to guess right now, I believe they would take Ike Ekwonu number 3 overall, because simply put, there are not a lot of guys like him. A trio of offensive linemen of Laramie Tunsil, who by the way has not been traded and is the Texans' starting left tackle until he is. Titus Howard, who has come into his own, and Ekwonu is a good trio, and there always is the possibility Laramie does get traded, to which at that point you would kick Ekwonu out from guard to tackle. And at this point, the Jets need edge help in the worst way, and having a pass rushing trio of Quinnen Williams, a healthy Carl Lawson, and who we assume to be a top 5 draft pick, and you can even throw in JFM in there, who Jets fans know as John Franklin Myers, would be a great look for their future. And if the 2019 San Francisco 49ers are any indication of what coach Robert Saleh can do with a healthy defensive line, then the Jets could potentially be in the market for recreating the infamous New York Sack Exchange. There's been a ton of rumors circulating that Kayvon Thibodeau's draft stock is falling because he doesn't care about football that much, the media's words, not mine, which to me is complete shit. But if he's there at 4, which he should be, I'd be very, very surprised if the Jets pass on him for another prospect. And within all of this, there's always a team that does some wild off-the-cuff shit, such as the Raiders taking Clelin Ferrell number 4 overall, or the Eagles jumping a division rival to take Devontae Smith, which caused the Giants to panic trade back to 20, so the Bears could get Justin Fields. The selection you're not always prepared for happen, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're always bad, and the Eagles with Devontae Smith was a good example, and when the Falcons in 2020 went with a prospect who was graded as an early second-round corner at number 16 in A.J. Terrell. A.J. was a second-team All-Pro player this past year. There weren't a lot of those weird selections last year because everyone knew 1, 2, 3 were going to be quarterbacks, but the year before, Jalen Reagor went before Justin Jefferson, which at the time everyone knew was a mistake, and it's only been magnified since. And with the narrative of this class isn't good, I feel like it's going to be a lot more of that this year than normal, because teams are going to face plenty of questions with their picks, and especially ones that are selecting in the top 5 or 10. And if a team chooses a player with an insane ceiling, like a Trayvon Walker, over someone like a Jermaine Johnson or KT, the potential for hitting a home run or to strike out swinging is higher in 2022 than normal. And if all of this isn't enough, there was a rumor that came out late last week that said both Ohio State receivers, so Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, are going a lot higher than what everyone currently expects. So let's break this down for a minute. To me at least, we're this far into the draft process, these guys' tape has been out for forever, and it's not like people are just now figuring out who they are, or have figured out who they are within the past month. It's one thing if there's a great player on a team at a lower level of competition, like a Pierre Strong, the running back from South Dakota State, but with Olave and Wilson, these guys have been tearing it up for a while, so to me, it's a little bit of a smokescreen that they are quote-unquote going a lot higher than we expect. And what exactly does that mean? I think Wilson is the better of the two, and I think his ceiling is pick 8 to the Atlanta Falcons, and quite honestly, I'd be very surprised if he goes any higher. And for Olave, to me, he's a tier below Wilson, and when doing mock drafts, there's always a run of receivers that usually start with Atlanta because their receiving core at the moment is horrible, and they need help there in the worst way. And then it usually ends with Green Bay at 22, or in that area, because there's plenty of receiver-needy teams between 8 and 22. So how high can Chris Olave really go, you know what I mean? So when taking everything into consideration with the 2022 NFL draft class, the only thing that really annoys me when seeing other people's mock drafts is reading the comments that always say garbage, trash, or whatever, and I could see nearly any mock draft happen this year, aside from the obvious like the Jets selecting Malik Willis or the Jags, because that's not going to happen, and let's be honest, no serious mock draft does that anyway. One scenario that has not been discussed too much is the possibility of receivers going slightly earlier than we expect because of the run. Now, not to contradict what I just said about Olave, but to me, a lot higher than I expect would have Chris in the top 8 or 10 picks, which should not happen. But if you're a Green Bay, a Kansas City, a New Orleans sitting there at 18, it's not groundbreaking news to know teams behind you want these players like a Drake London, Jameson Williams, Wilson, Olave, Treylon Burks, Jahan Dotson. So in that case, I could see a team like the Minnesota Vikings trading back with one of those mentioned teams, and at that point, you'd have 4 receivers go in the top 12 or 13 picks. It would be inevitable someone in the trenches will go a lot later than they should, someone maybe like a Charles Cross or George Karlaftis from Purdue, whose stock has fell quite a bit over the past few months. Then within this, how about a team like the Steelers for a quarterback, or a team trading with Philly, or Philly themselves using 2 of their first round picks to move up to wherever to get the guy they want? I made a video a couple of weeks ago discussing the NFL we want is finally here because of all the trades and how exciting of a time it is to be an NFL fan. And that does not apply to trades between teams in March to get big name players. That also applies to the NFL draft, and I truly cannot wait to see who trades for who in a couple of weeks. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel because it would truly mean the world. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.